Thank you, Sam, for having me. And thank you, everybody online and in person. I hope you enjoy the presentation tonight. I am addicted to DNA and solving problems with it. So hopefully you will get something exciting with it today, or tonight, I should say. Let me get this started here, and we'll get it going. Always have to move everything around for a little bit. All right, from the beginning. All right, and can you see the presentation?
Yes,
okay.
It looks great.
Okay, very good. All right, so the title tonight is What Can You Do with AncestryDNA? Most of us tend to think that you do a DNA test, you open up your results, and all the information is just going to pop out at you, and not a lot of work needs to be done. Well, I would like for you to meet my grandfather, and he has a little bit of information for you. Let's see here if I can get this going. It doesn't want to go. Okay, there we go. Okay. Can you guys hear it?
Not really.
Okay, let me try something here, just a second. I'm going to stop sharing and go back in because I think I forgot something important, and that was to share the sound.
Yeah, I think there's a setting somewhere. Okay.
Yeah, I think I've got it squared away now.
Ross. I'm happy for this opportunity to tell you a bit about myself and my family. Yes. My story started on the 9th of October 1881, in Mount Hope, Ohio. I was baptized in Holmes County, Ohio. My father, John H. Ross, was born in 1853, in Mount Hope. My mother, Ida May Kelly, was born in 1857, in Holmes County. When they married in 1879, my mother was 4 years younger than my father. I married my sweetheart Nettie Mae Mick on the 26th of October 1907, at age 26 in Canton, Ohio. That was a day to remember. She was born in 1885, in Stark County, Ohio. She was 22 years old when we married, 4 years younger than me. I want to introduce my granddaughter, Marty Flanagan. She has been busy on my AncestryDNA, finding my DNA matches and building our family tree. What is really important is to have the fun by building your tree, have several family members test from both sides, and watch all the videos at Ancestry for you to learn. Next, learn how to search by surname, search by ethnicities, understand genetic groups and shared locations. A very important fact is keep track of the matches. My suggestion is to use Excel. How fun to take an ancestor photo and bring it to life. I'm turning the class back to my granddaughter, but a final word, I'm glad I shared my life story with you. I hope you enjoyed watching.
Okay, these two introductions are from MyHeritage, but because I have a DNA test at MyHeritage and have a subscription, then I can have fun with the results. And MyHeritage at this point is the only company that's offering the opportunity to bring your ancestors alive. And the information that he was speaking is something that I typed into the database. And then it just, you know, he had an Irish heritage, so I gave him an Irish lilt. And obviously, I've never heard him speak. So that was kind of a fun thing. And here is another thing MyHeritage does. It takes your picture, a snapshot, and then it converts it into images for the beginning of time forward. And I just picked out 3 today just to share with you. So it's kind of fun. Here's a 1930 classic English and 16th century royalty. Oh, do I wish. and 17th century noblewomen. Just a fun thing that you can do when you get down into the DNA. So hopefully today, I want to share a few things here. There's 22 million testers at Ancestry right now, and it's growing. It could be up to 23 after Christmas. It's the largest company with family trees. And when you do DNA, you need a family tree of your matches as well as your own. It's easy to use. It has a variety of tools, has through lines, community clusters. Law department does not access your DNA except for the court order. So that is an issue that a lot of people are concerned about. You do have somewhat of the ability to have privacy on Ancestry. Colored dots to use to help you share with your matches, and shared match tool. Ethnicity breakdown with the chromosome browser. That's something new, which is kind of fun. And privacy for matches, and you control your information on your tree and on your matches. So this is what the page looks like at this point. You have your DNA story, so you can kind of see I'm 50% Ireland and Scottish, and then the rest is kind of throws into some English. And I have DNA matches, obviously, and then I have through lines. Now, there is another thing that you can get. It's called AncestryDNA traits. And, you know, to be honest with you, it's not necessary, but if you want to do it, it's fine. It does cover some of the areas like your fitness, medical information, you know, tasting, whether you're an athlete or not. So there's some fun things like that. So here are a few of those traits that I was telling you about. Now, this $10 does not apply anymore. That sale went off in October, but it had a good broad idea of what you get if you choose to do the traits. Right now, it's $20. So the main thing is if you decide to get a DNA test that you know how to activate. So you want to go in, make an account, hit yes that you want to activate your DNA kit. Now, it may not be the results yet, but you're getting it started. And then you hit next, and then you follow through on the prompts as they give those to you. And there's some helpful information before you actually decide to order a kit. You can make a free account, and then you can look at the helpful information, watch some videos, watch instructions, and read the FAQ. So this page has multiple learning outlets for you, and that's another thing that Ancestry provides. There's videos and articles just on about every subject you could possibly want. Here again, you don't need a paid account to learn from Ancestry. They have that under their learning hub. So every company that has DNA knows that there's going to be a lot of questions. So usually at the bottom of the page, they'll give you some links that you can read about different articles about different subject matters. And that's what those are all about. You want to make sure that you view all, because you'll be able to learn from that before you, make it permanent or you change your mind. All right. It's important to know how to set up your profile. You want to make sure that you're getting the biggest bang for your bucks. This is how I have mine set up, and I think it's a pretty general way of handling it. You want everybody to see your personal profile because you want to add clues about surnames and maybe ethnicity there that will spark interest and have folks reach out to you, and perhaps you can start a relationship that way with genealogy. Your DNA summary, you want to have your matches, be able to see your results, and also the ethnicity. And then down below, My tree is public, although you don't have to have your tree public. I have mine. And then I have photos, and I believe in sharing photos because I'm very thankful that some folks have decided to share theirs, because I had never seen my third great grandparents, and I was able to pick up a photo from one of my DNA matches. So here is a little bit more about how to do it, education, feedback, message boards, and you could also unsubscribe. If you choose not to be part of that, that's fine too. You can change your background color. Color can be a good thing for some folks and not for others, so you can make it for your eyes. I've got member tree hints on, potential relatives not in my tree. I want to get all the hints I can. I have also am open to getting emails. I also have it pushed so that if Ancestry has something they want to send it to me right away, go ahead and push it out. You can see there's a lot of things under setting that you can take care of. You can change your username, your password. You can update your email. You can cancel your membership. You can delete your whole account. And you also can download your data, but more about that later. So we've completed the profile. What are the important parts? Well, the important parts is to understand what you're committing to. And you want to link your DNA to your tree. That's very important. You want to decide what your visibility and sharing level is before you complete the process of your DNA test. You want to watch the download, and you want to understand how to download and delete if you choose down the road. Another thing I don't have on this list, but I think it's important, is that you should have a historical legacy about if something happens to you, either you pass away or you become physically unable of operating a computer, that someone can take over your work. So getting to ethnicity, this is one thing that when I first started with the AncestryDNA, which has been about 13 years ago, their ethnicity, I really didn't pay much attention, and I was not a fan. I will say now that they're doing 100% better. Does the ethnicity change on folks? Yes, as it really depends on the number of folks that have tested their DNA, and then Ancestry goes and groups them into communities and then can tell by the shared DNA whether you belong to Scottish or Irish or Germanic. And I will say that this tree ethnicity really matches my tree consistently. So I'm feeling like they're doing a much better job. Now, I mentioned DNA communities, and this will show you where most of my ancestors came from before they started migrating westward. So you can see that I have a strong concentration in the area of New England, lower New England, and then through the upper Midwest in that area. So you can see this is a larger view of that particular area, that community. It explains what it's all about. It shows where it is located in a particular state. Also, it also gives me an idea of when the folks arrived. So they have kind of a time frame here on the side that you can click on, and it will kind of show whether it's shrunk or whether it's expanded. So this is the location of my matches, and it gives you an idea. As you can see, I've got about 158 matches in the middle of the country. Now, I want to clarify, if you are a DNA match to me and you haven't put your location in, I or you are not going to show up on my match. These are folks that have said, hey, I am from a certain state, and that's why it kind of shows up. So I'm kind of think it's cool to know that I've got a couple of cousins over in Australia. So the biggest thing that Ancestry issued this year is the breakdown of your DNA by parent 1 or 2. And do you have to have a parent test? No. How accurate is it? It depends. Will it change? Yes. Is it hard if you have no parent to test? No. What it does, it gives you clues to which side of your matches are on. Now, with tongue in cheek, I'm going to kind of show you what I mean. As you can see, these are paternal matches. I have about 19,000 there. I have maternal matches, and they're about 23,000. Now, because I worked on my tree, I recognize these surnames in this particular grouping. So I know that this is my paternal match and my maternal. But how do you get the paternal and maternal designation? Well, you edit the parent, and then you can make that paternal or maternal. Or I could switch it around if I wasn't sure to see which way is the best. Now, what it also does is it takes my maternal ethnicity and throws it over here. And it takes my paternal ethnicity and puts it over here. So what does that give us down the road? It gives us a table or a breakdown. So you can see that this is me, and I think it's kind of interesting how this little bit here moved up to this area of my ethnicity. So it's like it's combining my paternal and maternal lines. So that's a good example of that. You can also see that there are differences that stay separated because I inherited it from one or the other parent, not both. Now, you can kind of see on the table, let me see if I can find this magnifying glass and bring it up. So you can kind of see that Scotland, I've got Scottish from both paternal and maternal. So I end up with 27%. And Ireland is 6% and 15%, and that's where I get the 21%. And so that kind of gives you an idea. So how accurate is it? All right. So I want to show you something of interest. All right. So I want you to look at chromosome 13. And you can see, and by the way, this is, I am on Scotland. That's the one I picked. Because remember, I get Scottish ancestry from both my parents. So 13 shows me that I have almost a whole chromosome of Scottish ancestry. And I also want to point out, you can see I have it on 3, 6, and 7. Whoops. Let me back that out. All right, this is my maternal. So remember, on my maternal, I had a full line of Scottish on chromosome 13. So now I'm going to go get my paternal. And on chromosome 13, on the top part, I have a full line of Scottish. So my chromosome 13 is Scottish ethnicity. So you're saying, what can I do with that? Well, I can utilize that in DNA Painter when I compare folks that have transferred their DNA to other sites where you have a chromosome browser. Because if they're matching me on chromosome 13, either on the top or bottom, I know that they're matching me on my Scottish lineage, my Scottish side, so that I can utilize that. So let's see here if I can get this to, it always wants to do that when I go back. Now, I also want you to look at chromosome 21. I have the same thing on chromosome 21. I've inherited a complete chromosome of Scottish ancestry. But if you take a look at the different chromosomes, you will see that those are the only two that both my maternal and paternal gave me my Scottish ancestry. It's all mixed up. Like on chromosome 1, I didn't get any Scottish at all. On chromosome 2, I only got it from my paternal side. Chromosome 3, I got it from my mom's side. So you can kind of see how that goes back and forth like that. And I think that's kind of neat. This is the first time that Ancestry has got into a chromosome browser. And I'm hoping down the road that they're going to expand that to all of our chromosomes, that we can look at other folks where they're matching us on a particular chromosome. So the other thing that I think is worth noting is the through lines. And these are in my tree. And what Ancestry does is it takes a look at my matches and looks at their tree to see if there's a potential link that we might have together in a particular grandparent set. So these are grandparent sets. Here's an example of what it looks like. This is my great uncle, who is a son of my great grandparents. These are children, 3 distinct lines. He had more, but only 3 lines have tested. Coming down each of these lines, you can see that this cousin and I share 188. From this cousin, would be my cousin. From this cousin, I have 3 matches. I've got BS, who shares 335. And I want to make a note. If you'll notice, it's about half as much. This is another generation down. So this is a second cousin one time removed, where this is a full second cousin. So, and that is right. It's about half as much. So this person would be about 188 or in that area if they had tested. In this particular case, they hadn't, but their daughter had. So it would be approximately 60 centimorgans, somewhere along in there. Now, you can notice another one over here. She's sharing a little bit light on centimorgans, but still within the range. And here you have another set of folks, and you can see that this one is in the range of a second cousin, and this is on the high side for a second cousin first removed. So you can kind of get a feel for what it looks like. When you have a second cousin, a great grandparent identified in your family tree, everybody that comes in as cousins under that great grandparent, 100% you're going to be sharing DNA. If you have a great grandparent, in your tree, and you have no matches for that great grandparent, something's wrong. It could be a non-paternal event, or it could be that no one in that tree has tested, or maybe they only had one child, and they got married again and had another child, and maybe those children have passed. But you want to investigate if you have no matches with a great grandparent. This is how my mom and how my half-sister on my paternal side. I'm very lucky in that respect. You can see that once I identify my maternal side and paternal side on that first slide where I could edit and make it happen, they automatically get this designation. So I don't have to go through the ancestry matches anymore. They do it for me, which is really kind of cool. You will also see that there is a common ancestor between my mom and I. Well, it happens to be her parents. And in this case, it happens to be our father. We share a father. So you can see the matches. It talks about the percent. If I wanted to go in this on a live link, it would tell me for sure if this was a half sister or what other kinds of possibilities it is. In this particular case, I know it is a half sister. So this is me sharing with my mom, and she's my common ancestor from my mom to her. And I thought that was pretty interesting how they did that, a mom and a daughter match. So this screen allows you to share matches. And this is important to know. Right here, you click on that and it'll bring up all the matches that share DNA with, in this case, it would be my mom and me. So I would know that they were all on the maternal side and they would be worth investigating because we share DNA with this group. So comparing ethnicity, I can look at the ethnicity of my mom, not on this screen, but another screen. And I can see if what I'm selecting, according to Ancestry, that I'm getting from my mom, doesn't look like it's coming. Is it correct or not? And I can also make a stab at her mom and dad. So her matches can turn out to be paternal or maternal. So using the dot groups, and they can add a lot to my tree. I can view in my tree. In other words, I can go up here and view the tree where the person fits into my tree. I can edit the relationship. If Ancestry has it wrong, I can change it to what it is. Be careful when you do this, but you can do that. I can add notes, which is very, very helpful. So this is what the dots look like. So I can decide that I want to explore my third great grandmother on my mom's side. So I'm going to pick out a color, let's say green, and then I'm going to look for somebody I know that's in that group. In other words, she descends or he descends from that third great grandparent. Then I can identify that person with a colored dot, a green, and then I can go see what shared matches they might have. And I can identify those with a green dot. Here are a few sites that I highly recommend. These are YouTube videos that you can watch. And if you're not using YouTube to learn about DNA and genealogy, you're really missing out. All you have to do is in your browser, just type YouTube / whatever subject you want to watch, and it'll bring up many, many choices. And pretty soon you'll have your own favorites and you'll always go to those. I also suggest that you sign up for a free account on DNA Painter and just play with it. It offers you so much. A couple of books that I recommend. When you're a beginner, I think Diane Souther does a really good job of explaining what to do and how to do it. Now, you're wondering, why do I have a book that's called The Adoptee's Guide to DNA Testing? You do not have to be an adoptee. You don't have to have adoptions in your family. This book is wonderful as a book for reference. They do a very good job of writing the information down for us to be able to understand. And I'm going to go here and stop sharing before we do the questions, if you don't mind. I want to kind of get out of this really quick. And I want to go into AncestryDNA. Can you guys all still see my sheet?
Yeah, we can see your computer screen.
Okay, good. Thank you. All right. So I kind of showed you this earlier, but it wasn't really live. So I'm going to go for Discover Your DNA Story.
Oh, but we're just seeing the PowerPoint program, so you might have to stop.
Okay, just a second here. Let me start over. All right, I'll stop sharing. And I was hoping I could go from one to the other, but didn't look like it. All right, now can you see?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so this is my ethnicity on AncestryDNA. And what they have is the different areas. They're saying I have 6 areas of the world. And so if I just click on Scotland, it kind of highlights a little green down here. And then you can see the darker green here. That's what this is related to. This is going to be more Irish, actually Northern Ireland and the southwest part of Scotland tend to be more Irish, which is one of the reasons I was surprised about not having more Irish. So I'm going to go back here for a moment and kind of show you what that looks like. So here's Ireland. It's this area, and then just a little bit of Northern Ireland up here. You can see I have a little bit of from Scotland and different shades of Irish going on there. And I want to pick out one that's Sweden and Denmark, because I find this interesting. As far as my research is concerned at this point, I can only find 2 sets of grandparents that would have been born about 1750 from this area. But they always declare themselves German because they left this area and went to Germany and the upper part of France for a period of time for religious issues. But you can see that it gives you a range that this might be correct to 0 to 19%. So it might not be 11%, it might be 0, or it could be 19%. And I haven't been able to verify at this point whether or not this is accurate for me as well. So, and then you have Germanic, and that's kind of interesting. You'll see that it kind of expands outside of what we look at as German. There's Netherlands, Belgium, Switzerland, Austria, and a little bit of Czechoslovakia. So think about that when you're thinking about ethnicity. I think the mistake most people make, they'll say, I know I'm 100% German. Well, they're not realizing that there was no one that was really 100% German, because the Romans came up to that area, and then the Vikings came down, and they have folks from Russia that came over, and the Germans married the English, particularly royalty, and also France. So Germany is a mixed bag, and so understand that when you're looking at it and study the history. All right, so I'm gonna back this up here. And this is the interesting part, I think, at this point. So I'm gonna show the chromosome painter. So you can see all of it in its live living color. So this is it goes down to chromosome 22, although I'm sure you can't see all of it on your screen. This is everything, all my ethnicity that Ancestry says I have. And it's really quite colorful. But if we go to Scotland, now remember, we're going to look at 3 and 13. Okay, not 3, 21 and 13. I'm sorry. Here's 13. It shows that I inherited Scottish ethnicity from both my mom and dad. And chromosome 21 doesn't pan out. So I just have chromosome 13. That's been an update from when I brought this out. So here's Irish. So what we want to look at to see, get rid of Scottish. We want to see if there is a chromosome. These are your chromosomes. Whether I may have inherited Irish from both of my parents, and it doesn't look like it. What's interesting, if I match somebody on chromosome 2 and their ethnicity is Irish, I'm going to be a little bit superstitious. I might want to look at other areas that we might match. Okay, going to go to Germanic Europe. And do I have anything from both parents? And the answer is no. Here again, it's more or less one parent. Now, I suspect it's my paternal. And at the top, I can click on that. And it looks like it's hitting the top. That's the paternal match. And it's on the top on all of my German, which would indicate that my mother did not provide enough German ethnicity for me to be to be considered. Now, let's go look at Ireland in that way. And you can see I have a little bit from my paternal, chromosome 1 and chromosome 3. But let's go to maternal. So I can tell from this, and you'll notice that 1 and 3 are not highlighted. So my dad gave me my Irish on 1 and 3, and my mother gave me everything else. So her ethnicity should be higher Irish than my dad. So let's look at England. And we do my mom first. And I love the way they break this down. So you can really study that and look at it. And so like, I'm going to go for paternal. Now, most of the English came from my mom. My dad only participated in chromosome 8, but it's the full length. So if I match a paternal ancestor on another side that we're matching on chromosome 8, and it's my dad's match, I know that it's going to be from England or Northwestern Europe. So let's take a look at Sweden and Denmark. There's the paternal. Now, give you a little interest here. I've just discovered through Y testing of my uncle's haplogroup, his Y haplogroup, takes him back to the Vikings. And I'm thinking that this is where this is coming from, which is kind of interesting. Now, if I go to my, I'm sorry, this is paternal. If I go to my maternal, I can see that my mom also throws in some, I got to get rid of that, sorry, throws in some Sweden and Denmark ethnicity too. So I'm wondering if she's got some ranges going back, which is kind of interesting. And here's Norway, kind of stands by itself, and unhook Sweden and Denmark. So you can see I have 2 chromosomes that are from Norway. And if I go to maternal, I have none. So if I ever am lucky to find someone from Norway, I can make the assumption that it's going to be on my paternal side. Ancestry, I think, has done a really good job with this, and it's kind of exciting to see how it's going to play out. All right, so I'm going to go back here. Let's here just a second. I'm going to go to DNA, and I want to go to through lines. Now, autosomal DNA is excellent for up to third great grandparents. You should have 100% match or almost with every cousin that goes back to that level, to your third great grandparents. After that, it can get a little spicy. So you need to really go very slowly in making assumptions. So I'm going to go down to my third great grandparents to kind of show you here what I'm talking about. All right, so here is a third great grandparent. I have 40 DNA matches, and this is on my dad's side. This is also on my dad's side. And this is on my dad's side. Very heavy. Okay, here is a second great grandparent, and you can see it's a little light, and there's a reason for that. She had children by 2 husbands, and my line comes from this, and he died early, so there weren't as many children. So I'm going to go down to third great grandparent. I need to go up. Here we go. Here is my third great grandparent. So I've got 86 DNA matches, and I wanted to bring this out for you so that you can kind of visualize this for your own. It leads one to think that John Garrett might be correct, but it might not be correct. What we have here is a difference of date when they were born. And so these may or should be maybe combined. 14 DNA matches have 1797 and only one has 1805. So I suspect that these are one and the same, just the different birth dates. So then you can go down and find the matches. And so what do you do with all of this information? Let me go back here. All right, so first of all, for you to verify that they belong in your tree, you're going to have to do some hard genealogy. So we can kind of see that Thomas Laird, we had birth dates and death dates. We would want to find out who his children were. Then we have this gal. We probably need to find a death record for her. And it looks like she married a page, but we'd like to prove that. And then it looks like we would be able to probably put these kids in. They haven't been proven yet, but they're all born 1876. So they might show up in the 1880 census. These probably won't, but you can kind of get an idea that we've got some work to do before we can say that these folks are indeed a cousin match. And that's kind of how you do it. So let's go to, I'm going to do by parent. And I want to close this out. Hopefully they eventually get rid of that. So I'm going to view my maternal matches. All right, so I'm going to pick somebody out, and I'm just going to use this person. And I want to see, okay, second or third cousin. I can probably confirm that she probably is maternal. I do not know this person. I have not done any research on it, but I can see that we share 91 centimorgans. We have a long segment of 38. That is awesome. That would probably would equal perhaps a ancestral couple. Then it gives you choices. Now, we can't disregard the 7%, the 12%, and 29, but we got almost a 50% chance. It's a second cousin one time removed, half second cousin, first cousin 3 times removed, a half first cousin. So you need some kind of chart to figure that out that you can look at. Does it make sense that this could be a half first cousin 2 times removed? Well, it really depends on a couple of things. How old is this person? And can you find a tree on that person? Can you do any research with the last name of Holt to see what you might find? So let's assume that Ancestry is correct, that it's in this range. But I have no idea. You can see she has no tree and no common ancestor. So if we go shared matches, it confirms again that it is on my mother's side. But it gives me an additional clue here. There's a common ancestor here. So I'm going to make an assumption that this may be where that person goes under this grouping. Now, this is a second great grandfather, and Ancestry is saying that it could possibly be a third cousin. So, and that might fit, but that's the kind of research you have to do. It's just to kind of go back and try a few things, do some genealogy on the person. And that's how you solve your unknown DNA matches. Now, if you get a pretty good idea that it probably, in this case, it's on my Laird side, I might put a note here. You know, I certainly did put a note. And I might contact her and say, do you have any Cooks or Lairds in your family that you know of? And hopefully she'll respond back. That's your only choice, is those 2 that I gave you. All right, so now what I'm going to do is open it up for questions. And I'll leave this up in case somebody has a question that I need to demonstrate.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Marty. So everybody on Zoom, you can type your questions in the Q&A or the chat, or if you, I believe there's a way that if you want to, I can, I think I can turn on your microphone so you can talk. So if somebody online wants to ask a question verbally, just put that in the chat and I'll turn on your mic. And those of you watching on Facebook can type into the comments, and I'm following it on here so I can read your question. And also, of course, those of you here in person can ask the question the old-fashioned way. So, okay, we got one that came in the Q&A. Wendy asks, is there an easy explanation of centimorgans and segments?
Yes, there is, and no, there isn't. I'm going to show you what I use. Just a minute, I'm going to go back and grab a hold of something that I should have brought up. And let's see here. Remember I said DNA Painter? And they have a chart called Centimorgan Project that's been put together by DNA testers. And let me see if I can get this up. Can you guys see it?
Yes.
Okay, let's say I put 300 centimorgans in, and it's going to give me potential ways that this DNA match could match me. 60% almost chance of it being a nephew, a half great grandniece, or a half great grand uncle. It could be a second cousin, a half first cousin, one time removed, and a first cousin, 2 times removed. So let's take a look at what that means. They give you a little chart to look at. This is all free. Just type DNA Painter CM, and I always open this up and have it to my side so that I can always verify what Ancestry is saying. So 300 centimorgans, you can kind of see there's a wide range that it might fit into. Let's say this person is the same age as I am, okay? So that means that we should be on the same level or close to it. It's a good assumption. Maybe it has 1% error rate. So here I am. So it means it could be a half second cousin, a half first cousin, or a full second cousin. Now, a half second cousin, it means that they only share one great grandparent. Could either be the mother or the father. We can't get that specific. If it's a half first cousin, it means that they're only going to share one of the grandparents. That could mean that the grandparents had 2 marriages each, maybe, or 1 each, and the second one had a non-paternal event, a child. So without that grandparent. So you never know. So it's going to be more than likely in this range. 100%? No. Probability is 60%. So we also have to consider this area, particularly if that person is a lot younger. See, this is kind of like in that same range up here. So I'm going to kind of disregard it. But if it's a lot older than me, it could be in this area. If it's a lot younger, it could be in this area. So does that kind of answer your question, Wendy?
Let me look back on the Q&A. We'll see if she types anything else.
Okay.
I've got more questions that have come in.
Okay.
Cindy asked, what was the author's name for the adoptive guide to DNA? And I wrote down the last name was Weinberg.
Okay. All right. Just a second here. And I'm going to bring that screen back up. And if you guys want to, if you've got a camera on you, you can take a picture of it.
And also, Marty, if you wouldn't mind emailing me your PowerPoint, I can send this out to the email list and everybody that's on Zoom with us.
Okay, that'd be great. I can do that.
Okay, awesome.
Do you want me to send it to you as a PDF?
Yeah, PDF would be great, or
okay.
Whatever's easiest, and I can convert it.
Okay.
Yeah, let's see here. Another question from Julie. I don't think I can see another person's browser and compare us like with FTDNA unless I control their DNA kit. Are we able to go to settings and grant browsing permission to a match? If not, do you think that's something Ancestry will allow later?
What I would do is there's 2 ways you can go about looking at that ethnicity. If you have a match that you've been working together and developing a relationship, they can let you see their DNA matches and their chromosome browser on ethnicity by making you a guest. In other words, you can't do anything, you can't change anything, but you can view that. And I know I have several DNA cousins that we do that because it really can kind of help us, because they might be sharing a third cousin, because we don't share with that person, but it is a verified third cousin, they might have some information I need to expand my tree. So it's always worth the opportunity to reach out. And I will say that in the beginning, like 5 years and going backwards, Ancestry has a real problem with getting the emails to the folks. If you try to do emails back and forth, they've improved that. I'm not having any trouble. Usually most people will write back within a week or two, depending on how often they log on. But you can look at their profile to see how often they're on. So if they're only getting it in on once a year, well, you know they're not going to respond to you quickly. So yeah, it's worth that. Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. Valerie asked, what are some free newspaper sites you like to use when researching your ancestors?
Oh my gosh, that is a really interesting one. Do you realize that the Library of Congress probably has the largest database of newspapers, and it's all over the country, all over the world. The problem is getting through what you need or an area that you need. Now, as far as newspapers, always try the county that you're researching first to see what kind of newspapers they might have available. County public libraries, for example, they might be willing to do a lookup for you. I also would recommend your state genealogy societies. A lot of them have online databases that you'll have access to. Let's say, well, I can give you my example. I have a lot of family that are from Kentucky, and I joined a genealogy society in Kentucky to get access to their database for their newspapers. Because they have ones that newspapers.com or a genealogy bank do not have. Now, when I'm doing adoption, to find information about births, deaths, marriages, I like Ancestry or newspaper.com. But if I'm really wanting an obit from an older period of time, like 1800s, I use Genealogy Bank. But don't forget your local state public libraries, county public libraries, and association, genealogy associations.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I would put in I often get emails from researchers that are always happy to look up obituaries for them on our microfilm, and sometimes also on the State Historical Society has old newspapers, and we have some more recent newspapers digitized as well. So there's a lot of good stuff out there. Let's see.
It's called information overload.
Yeah. Well, it's fun. I'll throw one of my own. I'm kind of curious, just in general, how much has this DNA genealogy allowed you to find out beyond what you could find out just from the old-fashioned genealogy using records?
Well, first of all, I was adopted. And so everything that I put together is from information that my biological mother gave me and then expanded on that. But then I realized too, the advantage of using DNA, because with DNA, I can confirm that my paper research is correct. So, but there is a limit. DNA, third or fourth great grandparents is about as far as I could say I'm proving. But if you can get that generation proven with DNA and with paper, and particularly if you start joining lineage societies, and they're going to do a thorough check of your paper, and if you are approved, then that gives you confidence that your research is good, your DNA is good. But the main reason that I got hooked on DNA was that so far I've been able to help 25 adoptees who did not know who their parents were. And I've been able to bring them into their parents, and they've developed family because of the ability to do that, my ability to do that. And I'm very, very grateful for that. That's something I have truly enjoyed doing.
Yeah, that's really amazing. And when I first heard you talk about that, I was blown away. That's just so got to be so fulfilling for you, and such a blessing for those people. Let's see, back to the questions that I've seen. Let me see if there are any. There's some more questions here. Julie's asking, can we select an ethnicity and see where on the chromosome we match with a certain person for that ethnicity?
You can if you have DNA Painter, because DNA Painter has a chromosome ethnicity bar that you can download your ethnicity from Ancestry. 23andMe also has it. So either one of those sites, you can download that ethnicity information. And then when you have matches, either on MyHeritage or Family Tree DNA or GEDmatch, because their information is by chromosome, then you can take their information and make a graph to see where you might intersect with your ethnicity. It's very easy to do. It sounds more difficult than it is.
Margaret says, thank you, Marty, and the library for this presentation. Very good info. Thank you for that, Margaret. Let's see. Deborah says, my dad's DNA has not been tested because he has passed. His dad was all Portuguese and his mom was all Irish. Ancestry has him as all Irish, no Portuguese. Ancestry has me, which they've tested my DNA, as no Portuguese. I have been told that because a son inherits their mother's X and I am a female, I would not have inherited any of my father's DNA. Can that be true?
You're talking, no, here, let me explain something. The Y DNA can only be inherited from a father to a male, any father to any male. So like if you have a brother, his Y DNA is the same as your father would be if you have a brother, if you test it. Now, when you talk about Portuguese, you've got to look at the history of that area. And you want to see where the migration patterns were, what nationalities went in there, where did they migrate to, did he come? I mean, a lot of questions have to be answered. Did he come to the United States from Portugal or from the Caribbean? It depends, because I know there was a lot of traffic on that side. Now, you can tell from what you're saying, if you're on AncestryDNA, clarify me if I don't have this correct. I suspect that you've got the Portuguese needs to be your father and the Irish needs to be your mother, and you need to change that on the Ancestry database. Is that really what your question is? I can show you how to do it.
Let's see here. Well, I will, if she pops up again, I'll feed that in, or
Okay.
But otherwise, let me see. Let's see. Wendy just had a comment. The DNA was invaluable to me. I found my biological grandparents. My dad was adopted with DNA and would never have found them otherwise, as well as some fairly close relatives, which has been really fun. That's really cool. Oh, and then I guess Julie, here's a question from Julie. And you said download ethnicity to DNA Painter, but do you mean download the raw DNA? I've not used DNA Painter. Maybe you just say a bit more about how you can transfer your DNA between these different websites and stuff.
Yes, no, there's a way of taking that chromosome information on Ancestry and moving it over to DNA Painter. And that's something you control on your DNA Painter site. It's on your computer.
Okay. Let's see.
That would be a
Valerie-
whole class in its own. I mean, it's I just gave you a little bit. You need to explore, watch some YouTube videos on DNA Painter, and I'm a big fan.
And I think if I remember right, when you previously joined us on Zoom, you talked more about like GED match and the different and uploading. And that is on our library YouTube channel. If any of you want to go on there and watch Marty's earlier presentation, there might be some more info there as well, which is on YouTube. So it all ends up on YouTube. Let's see. Valerie asks, what is the best way to research an ancestor who served in the Civil War to find information about their service?
Wow, that's a really good question. In that, if you're wanting to get the records, Sam has my email and he can share it with you. We have the Topeka Genealogical Society had a contact, Brian, I can't think of his last name, but he is a researcher at NARA on Civil War pensions. And he does an outstanding job. I had him do a little work on one of my Civil War, and I ended up with 56 pages that he was able to get for me, plus some warranties and land grants and some other documents that I might not have been able to find on my own. So if you're really interested, and it's reasonably priced, he gets a group that he wants to research, then makes the trip to Washington, D.C. and does all of it. And then when he gets back, he downloads it to your email and then you have it. So I would highly recommend him. He's done an excellent job for several of our members at the Topeka Genealogical Society.
Hey, cool. And Valerie says, thank you. Enjoyed your presentation so much. Well, thank you, Valerie.
Thank you very much for coming, taking your time.
Yeah. Okay, we had Deborah followed up on her earlier. She was the one who was talking about her Portuguese ancestors.
Yeah.
She said, my dad should have been one half Portuguese from the Azores, as his dad was 100%. His mom was 100% Irish. How did Ancestry predict him 100% Irish with no Portuguese? Yeah.
Okay, I don't know anything about the ethnicity of your father. That's not something I've researched, but I have researched Irish. There's nothing that's 100% Irish. Irish was impacted from Vikings, Romans, English, and Scottish. There was a constant war and battles going on. I think the earliest Y DNA was something like maybe 900 BC before Christ, that they found some artifacts that they might indicate that there was people living there, but it wasn't quote unquote Irish. So remember, this world was nothing but migration early on. People didn't stay in their areas. They migrated constantly, depending on weather, depending on climate. If it started warming up north, they moved north. If it started getting too hot or flooding south, they moved north. I mean, there was just a constant flux of people having migration and wars, a lot of wars. And that, of course, created a mix of ethnicity for all of us. So I would more likely to think that unless your mother's line was in Ireland for 2,000 to 3,000 years, that she probably isn't 100% Irish, because most of the people in Northern Ireland are Scotch Irish, because half of them were Scottish. And that happened in the 1700s, where a large amount of Scottish folks were moved over into Northern Ireland, trying to develop a Presbyterian base and an Church of England database there for the folks, and not have Catholics. That's what they were trying to work through trying to make that happen. And that's what caused a lot of wars and a lot of turmoil. So it's really hard to say anybody is 100% anything. You know, you have to look at the historical data for a particular country. But if you're really interested, you can do on family tree DNA, you can do what they call mitochondrial test. And your mtDNA, if you do your coding region, it's going to say exactly where your mother's line came from, and it will give you clues.
Well, that's really, I think that's really a great thing about this, is that this DNA business, it really encourages us all to kind of go past the, oh, my people are Swedish, my people are Irish, and just realize how complicated and rich the human story is. You know, what you said about people moving around, and how we're more in common than we might think, you know, in terms of our heritage as well as our DNA itself. So.
Well, it's kind of interesting because there's a study that's been done, like on Kansas, like when the Germans came and where they settled. And they settled in that area in Dickinson County, out in that area, and then south to your area there. But the Irish settled more or less around the Kansas City area, and then kind of going over toward the Topeka area. And then, so then you had the railroad coming in, you had the coal mines, you had the cattle drivers from Texas, and you just have this great big mess. So, you know, I was surprised that I got as much Scottish from my paternal side. I knew I had Scottish on my mom's side, but I was surprised how much Irish I got from her, and I was expecting more Irish from my dad's side. But what's really interesting about ethnicity, and I want to throw this in, is that if you have a full sibling, a brother or sister, and you both test your ethnicity, it's not going to match. Because remember, your mom had, I'm going to use some round numbers here, 7,500 centimorgans. Your dad had 7,500 centimorgans. And each of your mom and dad gave you 3,500 centimorgans to make you 7,500 as a complete. And that same thing took place with your brother or your sister. And they didn't get the same 3,500. They could have got half of that other 3,500. So you just might share 2,500 centimorgans, but there's a whole lot of centimorgans left. So your ethnicity among your siblings could be different and still be correct. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks. Oh, and Julie threw in, there might also be very few Portuguese testers, but that they did the statistical samples on those, right? So.
Yeah, and I'm not familiar with that nationality, so I don't even want to try to guess.
Yeah. Well, it's about 8:30, so we better wrap it up. Thank you again so much, Marty. And I really appreciated this, and it's so fascinating. And you know, I haven't had my DNA tested yet, kind of because I figured, well, I already know out to my great-great-grandparents, and what am I going to find out? But this has inspired me to, I need to order it and go ahead and get the testing done so I can join this club.
All right. Well, you won't regret it.
Yeah.
I've had more fun than Carter's pills with it. So, yeah. Well, thank you all for attending, and I appreciate you having me. Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, thanks. Bye-bye, everybody. Signing off.